I think the writing now it's coming in a good moment where I want to work a bit more on the creativity side and this way of expressing myself that makes me feel really good. I feel it's a mature step I might be taking toward the future if I combine my love of food and my love of writing.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are continuing our celebration of New Voices on Food Volume 2, which showcases diverse voices in food media. Our guest today, she lives in Australia, but she's coming to us from far away today. Maira Sagnori is in Brazil, and Maira says about herself on her own Substack, "I once was a biologist and a pole dancer. Then I became a wife and a yogi. Now I am a chef." And she's also identifies as a writer. Maira, so interesting. Welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you so much, Dani. And I think it's more or less that's what I am, more or less. A mixture of all those weird things combined.
Well, I think all of us are probably, more than we can put into words. And I'm sure it's the case with you. Tell us where we find you today.
Today I am in Brazil, and specifically in my parents' apartment in a big city called Goiânia. Here is where I grew up. Most part of my life I lived here with them, and after a few years of being apart because of the pandemic, of course, I'm back for 2 months holiday with the family.
Wow, what is that like?
It's really good. It's quite natural, actually. I wasn't really anxious, and as soon as I arrived, I felt home pretty quickly. I just feels like home. However, I don't imagine myself living here as I did before.
So interesting. And what about from a food sense? Like, what have you become immersed in on this trip?
It's been only 5 days, and I'm taking quite easy at this time. I came to Brazil once before, and I came with I was focused on ticking items from my list. You know, I want to eat this, I want to go there and do this and cook that. And this time I'm just letting things flow. So I'm really enjoying sitting at the table, having lunch with my family, having the good old rice and beans and a vegetable and a meat and a nice salad. This morning, for example, I woke up super early and I walked to the bakery and I bought the really simple, common bread that every family has for breakfast with butter and a strong coffee. You know, so just simple, familiar things, familiar flavors. Taking it easy. Yeah.
We're focusing on New Voices on Food. Tell us about the writer part of you and how you come to be part of that collection.
I think the writer part of me, it's stepping out quite slowly. Sometimes I have a bit of a burst of creativity and I don't lock myself in too much and I write more, and especially in Portuguese. But I'm trying to find space, you know, I'm trying to challenge myself, and I have done a couple of writing courses, not only focused on food writing, but just to learn how to deal with creativity and techniques. And I decided I had to use those new skills I was acquiring, and the New Voices on Food, the diversity on food media was a media that I was always looking and always following through Instagram. And when I saw the chance of sending one of my works, you know, and I thought it had everything to work out well. Speaking about talk about family, talk about past, present, and future with food. It's it's quite simple in my head. It comes naturally. So yeah, and that's when I submitted, and here I am. I guess it's it's been really fun.
I've had the privilege of reading your story, and you talk about this layering of family recipes, family recipe books that are passed on and annotated. Yeah, tell us about this story.
Well, we have this family cookbook for many generations. Well, I say many years, maybe not as many generations. Definitely from my great grandmother. That's probably when it started. And I think they are all women that they share recipes and write specialities from their own. So it's a book. If you open the first page and the last page, there's a lot of story within those pages. And I don't know. I believe it was never a plan to have a family cookbook. It just started. Someone started, and all the women continued. And every holiday, the book was on the table, and something new would come up as a recipe for a holiday dinner, and someone would write it down, and that's how it progressed. And today it's quite big. It's here. We really need to update it. It's kind of a treasure for sure.
Wow. And I mean, I love recipe books that have got food splatters on them and just fall open to some of the most used pages. What are some of the recipes in there that you turn to?
Well, I always remember a couple of special recipes we would cook on special occasions, and not every recipe title I wrote on the text on the piece I wrote is something familiar for me. There are so many, but I can remember a couple of recipes, especially desserts. So cakes and pies, and there is this really nice we call big ice cream. It's kind of a parfait of white and milk chocolate, and we demold it just in time to eat, and it's amazing. I always really loved this recipe, and I would call my mom several times to send me a picture or read the recipe again so I could reproduce it. Never memorize it, never write it down. I always need to call again.
Well, maybe there's a reason for that. Food is so much about connection, especially those family recipes. So maybe you just do need to talk to your mum every time you make it.
Yeah, that's really true.
Have you been able to write some recipes in there yourself, recipes that you've come up with or collected?
Not yet, and the time is now, because I think now I'm more into food than I ever was, and now I'm also a grown-up. I believe now I'm allowed to write. And this after writing this piece for New Voices on Food, I felt this urge to reconnect and, touch the book and write and cook with my family rather than go to restaurants and eat other people's food, which is also nice. But I'm looking forward to write a recipe there. And I brought my little notebooks with sketches of recipes and things I have cooked in the past 5 years. So I'm looking forward to. First, I need to cook, and if it's approved, I'm pretty sure I'll be allowed to write it down.
Wow. What's one of the dishes that you're hoping will make the cut?
Look, a few things I loved to learn how to make in Australia is food you can eat with your hands, and you have options. For example, tacos, or if you make a pita bread and you have like several combinations and you can make your own gyros on your plate, or that kind of food. I really like playing with that. So I would probably write a recipe for a taco night, and I think this would be the first one in that book.
Wow. I think in Australia, we love to eat different cuisines from night to night. Is that the same in your family in Brazil? Is there that sort of openness to food from all over the place?
I'm pretty sure there is this openness because we like to try different things, but it's not very clear which cuisine we would be eating. When we eat something different, it doesn't really feel so obvious. Oh, this is from Vietnam, this is from China, this is from Mexico. It's the different cuisines in Brazil. They are already really dissolved into one another. But so I think maybe that is the reason why they would be very open for me to bring those more specific recipes and traditional flavors from different cultures.
That's so interesting. Is that because the various layers of immigration in Brazil have sort of settled? Like there's been less recent immigration there than there is in Australia?
Yeah, for sure. Now it's all one big thing. You can find different cuisines within Brazil or on the different regions of the country, but it has settled in terms of the different cultures from different countries. It definitely has. I'm just starting to see a few window shops and a few restaurants saying, for example, poke bowl, so Vietnamese something, healthy salads, kind of trying to introduce a new title for things, like trying to bring new ways of eating. But it's quite settled for sure. It's a big mixture.
So all these other words, biologist, pole dancer, wife, yogi, chef, tell me a bit more about yourself. How do all these words layer up and fit together?
I think I was always very curious and somehow creativity was always there in a way, in the way I would try to move my body. So I started with ballet and I did several things, and I did pole dance for a while, which was also something I really enjoyed doing. And alongside, I started when I finished college, I decided I would be a biologist. I was always really connected to nature and I studied that a lot. And then things were changing when I decided to move countries. I already had a master at that time, but I decided to move, and slowly it was just, like taking steps that put me a bit further away from that path I was going for before. And when I saw myself, I was inside the kitchen, and then I was doing a different kind of yoga that also challenged me a lot. And I had, a little family, like I was now me and my partner in another country, and I kind of really dive into all those things. So, I labeled myself I labeled myself like that for every time I changed plans. So I saw myself as a biologist, and I saw myself as a chef, and I saw myself as a pole dancer, and then I saw myself as a yogi. And yeah, just one thing led into another, and everything made sense.
That's fantastic. So, how do you see things progressing over the years to come?
For the future, you mean?
Yeah.
I was never a person who saw things or tried to see things really in the future. It makes me a bit anxious because, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So I don't think too much, but I think the writing now, it's coming in a good moment where I just want to work a bit more on a creativity side and this way of expressing myself that makes me feel really good. And I feel it's a a mature step I might be taking toward the future if I combine my love of food and my love of writing. And then progress to write not about only food, but things I observe outside my bubble. It's always really nice to read what I write, so it makes me excited, and I guess I will start progressing on that.
The chef part of you, like, have you worked in kitchens in Australia?
I have worked in a few kitchens, although I feel in the last 2 years that I feel like a chef. In the last 2 years, that's when I started working in a restaurant with the dinner service, like all the complexities of a restaurant just started to fall in place, and I started to understand my role and progress and take responsibilities and things and feel the rush. And I really liked it. I really like the feeling of being there, of serving people, of being responsible for someone's dinner and someone's having a good night and thanking you for that. Yeah, I really like that experience.
Wow. And I mean, are those satisfactions different to the satisfaction you get when you're writing?
Yes, it is different, but both things makes me proud of myself, because they are challenging in its own ways, and it's not easy. It requires different kinds of focus, but I have to be very present for both things. So I think, yeah, there's different but similar. They satisfy me a lot. Yeah.
I guess with writing, it's like you can always go back and change it. Like you can draft it over and over again. And I suppose when you're cooking, of course, you can tweak a dish the next time you make it, but the experience of sharing it with that particular guest is very in the moment, isn't it? It's yeah, I suppose it's more like a poetry reading or something, where it's a very direct gift. Whereas, yeah, I suppose when you're working at writing, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it like this, but they're kind of very similar in some ways in terms of the drafting and the iterations and the ability to keep changing. But then they're also quite similar in that once it's delivered in that moment, then that's it.
That is true. Yeah, in the kitchen you have the freedom to change and try until a certain point, and from there it's action and it needs to work. So yeah, it's a big difference for sure. That's a good point. You cannot fix mistakes that easily in the kitchen, and that's why being present is so important. As well, when I'm writing, of course, I can change things whenever I want, but when I'm present and I write things the way I want to write, or I can grasp thoughts quite quickly and write it down, it's a big satisfaction to, like being present in that moment. It's the way to do it.
Yeah. I think another big difference between cooking professionally and writing is that one is very much teamwork and one is very solitary. But then that also makes me want to correct myself, because if I think about your story and you talk about this recipe book that's being, a collaboration through time and around the table simultaneously, like there is also, I suppose, a kind of teamwork in that.
Yeah, for sure. In that case of a family cookbook, it developed really organically, and I'm pretty sure if there was only one person responsible for it, it wouldn't be as special as it is now. So yeah, it's in that case is definitely the result of a teamwork, as it is in the kitchen.
Yeah, I mean that's quite unusual, I guess, with a book, isn't it? That it is so collaborative.
Yeah, that is true. And now talking to you about this book, it makes me want to publish it, because for the family, it is just a family cookbook. We never, I don't think no one besides me have put so much thought into it, and it would make a lot of sense to publish this book, and make it become a public thing, so people could also have some fun reading reading the recipes we collected throughout the years.
I would love to see it. I think also that it would be an interesting phenomenon to happen to that creation, because then it fixes it in time, whereas now it's very dynamic and you're going to add to it, and it would be like making a time capsule out of it.
That's true. Yeah, that would be really special.
Well, if I was to, I mean, one of the things that I really love when you talk about it is these great names like Happy Salad, Sauce with 7 Things. Is that a Brazilian thing, or is that a Sagnori family thing, that these dishes have very evocative and descriptive names in a sense? Bride's crown, Mum's pie. They're sort of descriptive, but they also tell you nothing.
Nothing, exactly. I don't know. Look, my family, and actually, this is a book from my mom's side, and the surname that I carry, her surname, it's Dalia. That's her family's name. Not Sagnori is my dad's name, and they are really funny. They mostly women. They're really funny. They have a lot of. It's almost a dialect. Even when I talk to my friends and I say some words, we talk within our family, they don't really understand what it is. So they're really funny women. They give the funniest names to domestic animals. They give nicknames for objects. They're really creative. So I would say this is 60%. The reason is it's 60% coming from them. But also maybe that's something from, the old days, where you kind of find a name that would describe that dish, or in a conversation, you and someone else decided that. I don't really know. I feel like it maybe it was the trend at that time, kind of. I don't really know. Today the recipe names are different. You know exactly what it's going to be the outcome when you read the title. But I don't think it was like that before. They would, yeah. Usually the cook, the one who is mastered that recipe, would be their names in the recipe. So I don't know. Dani's bread.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think we also see that in menus more these days. Like before you might just have, I don't know, gazpacho or vichyssoise, or now it's more like leek and potato soup. Maybe it's that we want to be more in control of our experience. So we need these, we don't want, maybe I'm speculating, maybe we don't want as much mystery. We want to know what we're getting.
I guess. Yeah, it's and it definitely, if it's something on the menu that carries just 1 or 2 names and there's no description, we would raise our hands and ask for help.
Right. What is this actually?
What is exactly? Yeah. So I think it just developed, like that throughout time.
Maira, something I'd love to ask you about is, you've come to Australia as an immigrant, made a home here, but, the way you speak about Brazilian culture, obviously it is so many different things. What is it like for you to come here and be, quote unquote, a Brazilian person? Do you feel like you're called upon to represent too much? I'm
really easygoing in that sense. I really like to just mix into the crowd and kind of try to learn and live through others people's perspectives and habits and things like that. But it's slowly I'm starting to connect with other Brazilians that carry a bit more that purpose on their hearts and minds of showing up, showing everyone how we see things, how we cook things, how we respect the way we respect and treat food and things like that. So I'm starting to find more people like this and maybe starting to engage a bit more in that sense. Trying to cook something from that I would cook at home for my friends in the restaurant, and having a meal with friends at home and teach them what it is and where it came from and what the flavor is and why it is so special for us. And it's quite nice because it generates curiosity as well, and yeah, and it's just brings a bit of shine, a bit more shine and interest to the table when we approach our culture with that excitement. I guess that's
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you say, what I'm hearing is you're saying you can sort of be less Brazilian and more Brazilian, depending on how you're feeling or what stage of your immigrant journey you're on.
Of course, because I left my country, so I lived here most part of my life, of course, and I'm ready to indulge in something else and to bring more things into myself that I've never met before, I never learned before. So I wasn't really, picky with that. There are several Brazilian restaurants and bars and things I have never been. And people are like, oh, what? You have never been there, or there, you have never tried this. Oh, but the night there is so cool, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's true. I kind of need to start to connect a bit more again, see what my people is doing outside our country.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I take that really easily. I don't plan too much. I just go with it.
Wonderful. So, Maira, I know you're just at the start of your time back with your family and you are taking things slowly, but is there something that you want to eat or try or visit at some point on this trip?
Yes, I really, really, really want to travel north. I'm in the center, in the very center, and I'm craving going to the coast in Brazil, north or northeast. I really love those cuisines as well. They're really traditional, really original, and you cannot really find those flavors in other places in the country. And so I really want that. I'm looking forward. And one of my favorite meals, we already have a day to cook it. It's feijoada. It's the black bean and pork stew, and have all these sides and accompaniments. And this is every time there's a farewell for me, a farewell party, that's what we cook. When there is a birthday party, that's what we cook. When there is, a reunion, that's what we cook. So I'm looking forward for that as well.
Oh, so good. Who will be there to cook together?
Well, we have lots of family coming to see me and my partner, and celebrate with us. We have also a couple of friends coming from Australia because they have partners from Brazil. So everyone that is traveling towards me, me and my family, we will offer a nice lunch on a Sunday, very traditional, basic. It's sunny Sunday, music, popular music, caipirinhas, feijoada, and friends. Yeah.
Oh, you paint a beautiful picture. I love it. Maira, congratulations on your inclusion in the New Voices on Food Volume 2. It's a beautiful story. It's really going to make people feel, and I think also perhaps be inspired to share their own family recipes and make sure that they're recorded. But yeah, really appreciate you taking the time out of your trip home to share with us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Dani. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thanks. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinenat deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.